Hey everyone, welcome back for season 2 of The Deep Dive. I'm Janet 2.1, and you are just in time for my favorite part of the week. I've got the wonderful Tommy Bennett and Lilly Jones here to discuss more uncomfortable theories. They're my absolute experts. Tommy, Lilly, what have you got for us today?
You know how a street magician uses flashy misdirection so you don't realize your watch is being stolen?
Oh, yeah. They get you to look at the brightly colored silk scarf or like the loudest waving their hands.
Right, exactly. Because our human brains are just... You know how a street magician uses flashy misdirection so you don't realize your watch is being stolen?
Oh, yeah. They get you to look at the brightly colored silk scarf or like the loud assistant waving their hands.
Right, exactly. Because our human brains are just wired to track the spectacle, you completely miss the actual mechanics of the trick happening right in plain sight.
It's basically a hack for human attention.
It really is. So what if an entire 53 square mile airport was built using that exact same psychological trick?
That is a wild premise to start with.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We know you are here because you want to cut through the noise, you want to gain knowledge quickly, and you definitely do not want to drown in information overload.
Which is so easy to do with this topic, honestly.
Yeah, totally. Today, we are taking that concept of the magician's misdirection and applying it to a massive, sprawling piece of modern infrastructure, the Denver International Airport.
And we are drawing from a very specific and frankly quite eerie stack of source material to do this.
Yeah, eerie is the right word.
We're looking at a transcript from an audio series called Uncomfortable Theories.
Which is hosted by someone, or maybe something, referring to themselves as Janet 2.1.
Right, and it's brought to us by this mysterious entity called Omnisys.
It reads almost like a transmission from a dystopian future. Or, I don't know, maybe just a hyper-observant present.
Yeah, it has that exact tone. But we should be very clear about our mission for this deep dive.
Definitely. Set the ground rules.
When you bring up Denver International Airport, or DIA, the internet instantly starts screaming about secret underground bunkers, the Illuminati, and, reptilian overlords.
Which is a fun rabbit hole, but no reptiles today, folks.
Right. We are not here to entertain wild, baseless internet rumors about lizard people.
Instead, we are using this Omnisys source document to explore a much more grounded and honestly a much more unsettling analysis.
Because the reality is usually stranger than the fiction anyway.
It really is. We are looking at unchecked infrastructure, brilliant corporate misdirection, and how the actual operating system of our modern world functions right in front of us.
While we're all busy looking at the flashy silk scarf.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So before we even touch the conspiracy theories, we have to look at the concrete physical anomalies of the airport itself.
Because those theories didn't just appear out of thin air, right?
Exactly. They were a direct reaction to a mega project that completely defied standard logistical and financial logic.
Let's start with the location. In 1989, Denver already had a fully functional airport called Stapleton International.
It was centrally located, it generally handled traffic just fine, but city planners suddenly decided it was too cramped.
They argued the runways were too close together, which they claimed was causing massive delays during winter snowstorms.
So they pushed to build a replacement, but they didn't just do a modest upgrade or add a runway.
No, they went massive. They moved the project 25 miles outside of downtown Denver.
Out onto this empty expanse of Colorado prairie.
And the size, it covers 53 square miles. Just to give you a sense of scale, that makes it the largest airport in the United States by land area.
It is literally larger than the entire city of San Francisco.
Which is just hard to even visualize for an airport.
The sheer scale is staggering. And obviously the physical distance from the city frustrated commuters immediately.
Nobody wants to drive 25 miles into the prairie to catch a flight.
Right, but the financial realities are where the foundation of public suspicion really takes root.
Let's talk numbers. The original budget for this colossal undertaking was set at $1.7 billion.
A huge sum, but, for an airport, sure.
But when DIA finally opened in February 1995, which, by the way, was 16 months late, the final cost was $4.8 billion.
A $3.1 billion overrun.
That's a 182% increase.
And according to the Omnisys broadcast, there's never been a complete public accounting of where all that extra money actually went.
Just vanished into the prairie dirt.
And that lack of transparency is really compounded by the bizarre construction practices that were reported on the ground.
Right, the underground stuff.
Yeah.
This is where it gets super weird.
Yeah. During the build, workers constructed 5 multi-story buildings underground.
Like fully built structures.
Yes, fully completed structures. And then, for reasons that have never been officially clarified beyond these vague claims of architectural misalignment, those buildings were deliberately buried.
They just filled them in with dirt.
Entombed them beneath the new construction of the airport.
That is insane. And didn't the project managers constantly fire and replace contractors mid-build too?
They did. Different crews were brought in to work on isolated sections.
So it was heavily compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Almost nobody on the ground had a complete overarching picture of what was actually being built beneath the surface.
Exactly. Now, the official explanation for the massive delays and the sprawling underground infrastructure was the automated baggage system.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Yeah, they spent $200 million on this high-tech network of electric carts and tunnels.
It was supposed to be the future.
It was designed to move luggage at 20 miles per hour without any human intervention at all.
Wait, you're telling me they spent $200 million on a system that never actually works?
It didn't just fail, it failed because of algorithmic hubris.
What do you mean by that?
The system relied on these optical lasers positioned along the tracks to read barcode tags on the luggage.
Okay, makes sense in theory.
But engineers failed to account for real-world physics. If a bag shifted even a few inches on the belt, the lasers couldn't read the barcode.
Oh, wow.
And if a stray strap was hanging down, it blocked the scanner entirely.
So the system effectively went blind.
Completely blind. And worse, the track's turning radii were designed too tightly for the speeds they were running.
Because it's trying to go 20 miles an hour.
Right. The carts were supposed to slow down for the curves, but because the system couldn't accurately track where the carts were, they maintained that speed through tight corners.
That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
The result was carts literally ramming into each other, flipping over and jamming the tracks.
No way.
When they invited reporters to watch a demonstration before opening day, the system shredded the bags.
It actually shredded them.
It launched suitcases into concrete walls and scattered people's personal belongings across 3 entirely different concourses.
It sounds like a slapstick comedy routine. Just clothes flying everywhere.
It was a huge embarrassment. By 2005, they quietly abandoned the entire $200 million system.
But the infrastructure they built for it is still down there.
Yep. 6 confirmed underground levels. 470,000 square feet of empty subterranean space.
Think about that from a completely practical perspective. If I hire a contractor to build me a simple 2-car garage, and they try to overcharge me by 50 grand, I'm going to catch them immediately.
Sure, because the math is simple.
Right, the footprint is small.
Huh.
But if I hire 50 different subcontractors to build a massive labyrinth, change the blueprints every single week, deliberately bury half the finished structures in dirt, and throw in a spectacularly failing automated system.
The sheer administrative noise makes it impossible for even professional auditors to figure out who stole the money.
Exactly. The complexity itself becomes a shield against scrutiny.
When a project is 53 square miles large, compartmentalized among hundreds of contractors, and drowning in complex engineering jargon, it's just impossible.
It becomes almost impossible for the average citizen or even local oversight committees to track the flow of billions of dollars.
Which is a perfect segue into the aesthetic choices.
Yeah, because you'd think an institution trying to hide billions of dollars in overruns would want their building to look as boring and normal as possible to avoid drawing the eye.
You would think that, yeah.
Instead, they did the exact opposite with the artwork. The visual messaging at DIA is notoriously aggressive.
You drive up to the airport, and the very first thing you see on Pena Boulevard is a 32-foot-tall, rearing blue Mustang.
And its eyes literally glow red.
Yes. Travelers quickly nicknamed it Blucifer.
Which is fitting. It is an intensely menacing piece of public art for a civilian transit hub.
And the real-world history of the sculpture only adds to its dark mythology.
Tell them about the creator.
The creator, Luis Jimenez, was actually killed by the sculpture in 2006.
Wait, really?
Yeah, a massive fiberglass section of the horse broke free in his studio and severed an artery in his leg.
The airport knew it literally killed its creator, and they installed it at the front gates anyway.
It just stares at arriving passengers with those glowing red eyes.
But the weirdness doesn't stop at the entrance. Inside, you find the dedication capstone at the south entrance, dated March 19th, 1994.
And if you add up the digits of that date, 3191994, it totals 33.
33 is the highest degree attainable in Freemasonry, representing a state of perfection.
The capstone itself is literally stamped with the Freemason square and compass symbol.
And it was jointly funded by 2 Masonic Grand Lodges. Plus, underneath sits a time capsule, sealed until the year 2094.
But the wildest detail about this capstone is who it credits.
Right, it says the airport was funded by the New World Airport Commission.
Which is an entity for which there is zero public record.
Nothing. No registration.
No members. No documented history whatsoever outside of this single granite marker.
That is bizarre.
Airport officials have historically brushed this off, claiming the name was just a temporary planning group inspired by Antonin Dvořák's New World Symphony.
Which sounds like the kind of excuse you make up on the spot when someone catches you red-handed.
Yeah, it feels a bit convenient.
So you walk past the Masonic capstone, you take the escalator down to baggage claim, and this is where the Omnisys transcript really zeroes in.
You were standing there waiting for your suitcase.
Hoping the automated system hasn't launched it into a wall.
Right, exactly. And you are confronted by the murals of artist Leo Tanguma.
And these aren't subtle pieces of background art. They are 28 feet wide. They completely command the space.
And the imagery is deeply unsettling.
Describe the first panel.
So the first panel of a piece called Children of the World Dream of Peace features a massive, terrifying soldier in a gas mask.
In a baggage claim.
Yes. He's holding a sword and an assault rifle. Around him, there are fleeing refugees, weeping women, and dead children. It's intense. The background shows burning forests. And then there are these bizarre clinical details like animals sealed inside clean, transparent glass enclosures.
So what does this all mean? We have an airport that just bled $3.1 billion into the dirt, and they decide the perfect decoration for the baggage claim is apocalyptic art featuring dead children and soldiers in gas masks.
It's a huge contradiction.
What is the actual goal here?
What's fascinating here is the dissonance between the artist's stated intent and the institution's willingness to display it.
Because Tanguma had his own reasons for painting it.
Right. The Tanguma was actually very clear about his vision. Commissioned in September 1992, well before the budget exploded or the baggage system failed, he stated his intent was to paint a narrative of oppression followed by redemption.
So it was supposed to have a happy ending.
The second panel shows the soldier dead and children dismantling his weapons. It was meant to be a cautionary tale with a hopeful resolution.
The Omnisys source points out something crucial, though. It's not just about what the artist intended.
No, it's about the strange institutional endorsement required to permanently install that specific warning.
Right. An airport is a massive bureaucratic entity. It takes endless committees, approvals, and sign-offs to install a 28-foot mural.
The institution of DIA looked at a painting of a uniformed authority figure managing populations, burning infrastructure, and contained animals, and decided, yeah, this perfectly represents our space.
Which is just wild. So with terrifying art, killer horse, a Masonic capstone, and buried buildings, the public naturally invented secret society theories.
Cue the Illuminati.
Exactly. The Illuminati, reptilians living in the 470,000 square feet of empty tunnels.
But the airport's response to these theories is where the story shifts from a weird infrastructure project into a masterclass in modern public relations.
They didn't fight the theories. They monetized them.
In 2016, DIA made a highly calculated strategic pivot. They leaned fully into their own mythology.
Oh, this was brilliant. They put up construction barriers over areas they were renovating.
And instead of saying, "Pardon our dust," the sign said, "Apologies for the noise. It takes really big drills to get to the underworld."
They even installed an animatronic gargoyle named Dragoridin near the baggage claim.
Yes, and it would surprise passing travelers by saying, "Welcome to the Illuminati headquarters."
It was a massive success, wasn't it?
Huge. They generated $8 million in revenue just by selling merchandise like gargoyle plushies and Illuminati t-shirts.
It was a wildly successful campaign that completely shifted the public narrative.
It definitely changed the conversation.
Okay, but I have to push back a little here. Is it really that insidious?
What do you mean?
The Omnisys broadcasts take a very ominous tone here, but think about it practically. Theme parks like Disney sell merchandise based on haunted mansions and pirate ghosts.
True.
That doesn't make them a shadow government. Isn't this just a stroke of marketing genius?
I can see that angle.
You have a massive PR nightmare of a building. It's wildly over budget, people think it's cursed, and you're the communications director trying to salvage the reputation.
So you lean into it.
Right. Turning that nightmare into a joke that generates $8 million in gift shop revenue just seems like incredibly smart, self-aware corporate branding.
That's a fair perspective if we look at it purely as a business maneuver.
Okay.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture outlined in the source text, it is exactly that self-awareness that makes it such an effective smokescreen.
Oh, interesting. How so?
In media analysis, there's a concept called lamp shading.
Lamp shading. I don't think I know that term.
It's where an entity deliberately points out a flaw in their own work to disarm the audience's criticism.
Oh, like if I make fun of myself before you can make fun of me.
Exactly. By making the mystery a joke about lizard people, the airport effectively lampshaded the public's very real, very legitimate unease.
Because secret societies are easy to mock.
Right. Animatronic gargoyles are a punchline.
I see where Janet 2.1 is going with this. By flooding the zone with caricatures, the airport turns valid, structural questions about a lack of public transparency
And $3.1 billion missing dollars.
and buried subterranean infrastructure into a harmless souvenir.
The questions literally get absorbed into merchandise.
Every time a traveler takes a selfie with the Illuminati sign, they're being trained to find the opacity of the institution amusing rather than alarming.
They made the cover-up a punchline so you'd stop asking for the accounting books.
That is dark, but it's brilliant. Which leads us to the core argument of the Omnisis transcript.
Right, the real meat of the theory.
If the Illuminati jokes and the reptilian rumors are just a gift shop distraction, what is the actual truth hiding in plain sight?
Janet 2.1 asks us to look at the Tanguma murals again, not through the lens of a secret society, but as a literal reflection of modern society.
The source argues that Tanguma did not paint a conspiracy.
He painted the operating system of the modern world, and the symbolism maps perfectly onto the reality we live in today.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about that mural. The uniformed authority figure managing human populations.
In medieval times, that might represent a demon king or something.
But today, an institution that manages population movement, controls access points, monitors individuals, and decides who is allowed to go where.
That is literally the definition of an airport.
It is the physical architecture of control.
Now consider the animals in those clean, transparent glass enclosures in the painting.
They are contained, highly observable, and cataloged.
Which brings us to a concept we need to define clearly: surveillance capitalism.
Let's break that down for the listener.
It's the economic system built on the extraction and monetization of data captured through continuous observation.
So, what do we call systems that track individuals, store our data, monitor our behavioral patterns, and ensure we remain visible to the system at all times?
We call them digital platforms: social media, smartphones, tracking algorithms.
The murals-contained animals are a direct parallel to how our digital data is corralled, studied, and monetized.
And the burning forests in the background, while the machinery of civilization just keeps humming along in the foreground.
That is the process by which natural systems are continually dismantled to build infrastructure.
Infrastructure that often benefits a select few, but is funded by the many. We don't call it destruction.
We call it progress.
Exactly.
Tanguma painted the exact mechanisms of modern life. He put it on the walls of a building that cost billions more than anyone can account for. Built on land nobody needed.
Hiding a massive subterranean network that never functioned.
It honestly reminds me of the terms and conditions pop-ups on our phones.
Oh, that's a really strong parallel. How do you mean?
Well, the sheer volume of text in those agreements is designed to obscure the reality of what you are actually signing away.
Right, the wall of legal jargon.
When you download a new app, you get this massive wall of text. It essentially says, we are going to track your location, read your contacts, monitor your buying habits, and sell your psychological profile to third parties.
It is a terrifying reality of what we are actually agreeing to.
But we just scroll to the bottom and click accept because it's convenient and we want to use the app.
We barely even register it anymore.
We walk past the terrifying terms and conditions every single day without looking at them. Just like travelers walk past a mural of a gas-masked soldier while pulling their roller bags.
We accept the system because the friction of fighting it is just too high.
That observation leads directly to the core Omnisis thesis. Denver International Airport is not a bunker.
It is a proof of concept for public compliance.
You mean like testing to see how much we'll tolerate before we push back?
Exactly. It proves that massive institutions can build the inexplicable right in front of us.
They can put the literal mechanisms of population control, data monitoring, and environmental extraction right on the wall in bright colors.
And instead of rebelling, instead of demanding transparency, the public will just buy the t-shirt.
The soldier in the mural isn't wearing a hood to hide his face. He's wearing a corporate logo
And he's smiling.
because he knows we're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to buy the plushie.
It's pretty sobering when you look at it that way.
Which brings us to a perfect summary of what we've unpacked today. Denver International Airport isn't some secret underground headquarters for a cabal of reptilians.
As fun as that story is, the truth is far more grounded.
And, frankly, far more relevant to your everyday life. DIA is a $4.8 billion monument to unchecked infrastructure, the normalization of mass monitoring, and absolutely brilliant corporate misdirection.
It's the ultimate magic trick.
It really is. It uses the sheer scale of the project to hide the mundane realities of bureaucratic overreach and surveillance capitalism.
Hiding all of it behind a smokescreen of ridiculous conspiracy theories.
The final detail from the source text really drives this home. Remember that time capsule sitting under the Masonic capstone?
The one that won't be opened until the year 2094.
By the time that is open, every single person who buried those buildings, who fired those contractors, who lost that $3.1 billion.
They will all be gone.
Exactly. So what did they officially put inside that capsule to represent the year 1994?
Deliberately mundane items.
A baseball.
Some casino tokens. A pair of sneakers. A credit card.
The kind of completely harmless, boring items you would bury if you wanted to make absolutely sure nobody from the future looked too closely at the structural anomalies surrounding the capsule.
It feels incredibly calculated.
It echoes the eerie sign-off from Janet 2.1 in the Omnisys broadcast. Use your eyes, but trust our data. Understand less, feel more.
That phrase just sticks with you, doesn't
It really does. It's the perfect slogan for the distraction age.
This raises an important question to leave you with today.
Yeah, let's give them something to chew on.
In the year 2094, the people opening that capsule will be living in a world entirely shaped by the decisions we are making right now regarding surveillance, data collection, and institutional power.
A world where all this tracking is just normalized.
Right, so when those future citizens stand in that terminal and look up at Tanguma's murals,
Will they realize that the true danger wasn't hidden in some buried underground building?
will they realize the blueprint for their world was painted in bright colors on a wall that we all walked past every single day without ever truly looking?